Well, welcome to the third video in the CME trilogy, which I'm sure will expand beyond that, on ePhones and ePhone DNs. Now, before we dive right in, I want to get our bearings because we've put together some key pieces at this point. First, we set the vision. What is CME? We've got this all-in-one device. You could call it a SWOUT or a switch, a router, a Wi-Fi access point, voicemail, even a music on hold jack on that UC520. But that's representative of many a voice gateway, a 2900 series, 3900 series, 2800. I mean, there's a lot of various routers that can do CME, each one having their own capacity of phones that they're able to support. So we set the vision. Here's what we're going to need. Second nugget of the trilogy thus far was moving into the base configuration, setting the telephony service configuration or the voice service, voice over IP / voice registration system for SIP, if we want to use SIP as our controlling protocol for our endpoints. More commonly to use Skinny in the CME environment, but nonetheless you can use either or. And now after that base configuration has been laid, we are here, which is where we're going to be setting up our IP phones. Those are represented by ePhones and ePhone DNs. And of course, as soon as we get into the endpoints, it's just like, the configuration explodes with all kinds of different options that we have at our disposal. So in here, we will look at the ePhones and ePhone DNs themselves. Then we will get into shared lines and button overlay, which is kind of similar to the shared line world. And then finally, we'll look at auto registration and using that automatically turned on feature to make our life a little easier. Now, if you've taken any series with me at all at CPT Nuggets, you know I have to use a Matrix analogy at least once, and here it is. There's a scene in the Matrix where Morpheus is sitting with Neo trying to describe what the Matrix is, and he uses this line. He says, as they're kind of in this, what they call it, the construct, right? In this big white area where they load weapons and all this kind of stuff, and Morpheus looks at Neo and he says, your appearance, well, hang on, I have to try the voice. Your appearance is now what we call residual self-image. It is the mental projection of your digital self. I can't quite say it like him, but nonetheless, this concept of ePhones and ePhone DNs, think of this as the representation of the phones themselves. When we are talking about directory numbers on phones, and I'm saying, okay, there's a phone number, that's known as an ePhone DN. So on the configuration side, it's ePhone DN. When we're talking about the phone itself in the configuration side, in the virtual world, we have it being an ePhone. Now, in the order of configuration, we always do the directory numbers first because it's no use creating a phone when there's nothing to assign to it. So ePhone DNs represent the directory numbers. There's two flavors that you can configure them as, single line and dual line. Now I will say in the more recent iOS versions, they've even added octoline, which is fun to say, where it's literally 8 instances per line. And that's really what it describes. When you have a single line instance, it is a directory number only able to have a single active call at a time. It is, if there's somebody on the call and it receives something incoming, it's going to get a busy signal. Whereas dual line, that's where you have 2 simultaneous calls on there. And I would say that's what most people want, to where when you are on a call, you want call waiting, so a call can buzz you in. Or maybe you're on a call and you want to transfer them, or you want to put them on hold and call somebody else. All of that requires at least dual line functionality, conference calling, all those kind of things. Anything where you are on a call and you do something else with your phone requiring another call. So that's where we need dual line. Now that octo line you can imagine rarely used, but typically for like a receptionist or a support group that's handling a lot of incoming calls all at the same time. So partnered right with the ePhone DN is the ePhone. So after you've created your directory numbers, you then create the phones themselves. They are the representations of the phones, and they are linked to the device itself by the MAC address. Yes, it's a little bit tedious because a MAC address is 12 characters hexadecimal that you need to enter. Now, you can get the MAC address from all over the place. I mean, if you grab the phone physically and flip it around, they have stickers on the back of the phone. One of them will be the MAC address, and it's actually, if you look at it, if I could draw it, it's and then it shows the MAC address. It's really, really little. You need glasses if you're like me to see it. But it'll be something like that, and the lines above that are meant to represent a UPC code because you can get a hand scanner or something like that. If you have a lot of phones, it might benefit you to set up a little hand scanner, which you can go beep, scan it, and then type in what extension you want to give it. Beep, beep, beep. Just keep going around to all the different phones. Maybe when you get them, one of the things that I mentioned is it's printed on the box of the Cisco IP phone. So you just have a pile of boxes and you say, okay, that one's 1001, 1002. You're kind of scanning them and you're typing them in, and then the little hand scanner can generate a nice little Excel spreadsheet by the time you're said and done, or a CSV file that you can then use to copy and paste right into the configuration and blast out a bunch of them all at the same time. One of the things that I do commonly is if I'm trying to figure out where the devices are, what extensions they are. Sometimes I'll be on the switch and I'll do a show MAC address table. Maybe start off with a show CDP neighbors. I should show you this. Hang on, let me. Didn't think of doing this, so let's see if it'll work. Come in here, do a show CDP neighbors. These phones do show up as CDP neighbors, so I could do show CDP neighbors detail and just give me the list of them, and I can see, I've got one 7960 phone plugged in here, and I'm able to see the IP address, and right up there is the device ID, so I'm able to see that is SEP. Celsius Ethernet phone, and there's the MAC address right there. Right underneath that is my 7970, and I can see a little bit more about that. I'm even able to see the firmware version that's reported with CDP. That's so handy. And I can do a show MAC address table. And that'll give me a list and say, okay, well, these devices are in these ports, and I'm able to line them all up and find that out there. So a lot of different ways to get the MAC address. That's required for the config. Well, that's enough to at least get started with this configuration. Let's get, well, before I get into this, let's add a little vision to it. I've got my UC520. I still have those two FXS ports configured for the analog phones. So I don't know if I have the dial peers on there still. Let's glance at that real quick. Do a first off show voice port summary so I can get the there we go. Get the numbers for them. There they are. 000 and 001 are what they're plugged into. And then I'll do a show dial peer voice summary. And see if I have... Okay, I have the PS... Okay, I do. Okay, I thought I had deleted those, but if not. So let's see. We've got 1101 here on 000. And then 001 is 1102. Okay, got a couple FXS ports. Now, over here on the left side of the device, I have three things attached. I've got, without following the exact cables, I think this is going to my 7960 phone, which is actually running a skinny image. This one is plugged into a 7970 phone, which is running a SIP image. We're not going to really work with that one yet. This one is plugged into my computer. And the reason I bring that up is because I'm going to start up IPC, IP Communicator, running on my computer. As a matter of fact, I might as well just do that right now. Poof, and there it is. So I just ran this. It's probably still configured from the previous config. So I just right click on this guy, go to preferences. I'm going to go to the network. Now I actually have a little USB Ethernet adapter plugged in here, so I can play with this guy without messing up all of my other stuff I've got on my computer. I can see right there, there's the device name. It's picked that up, which tells me that's also the MAC address of the adapter right there, and it's pointed at a TFTP server, which this is the old IP address of the gateway. Let me bust open a command prompt here. Just do an IP config. And all right, so we are 10.100.0.13 is going to be the IP address assigned here, with the gateway being 10.100.0.1, which is my CME device. So I'm going to say, okay, that's the TFTP server I want to use. So I'll click on OK. This guy will likely reboot himself. Wow, look at that. I didn't. Where did he get extension 4000? I must have had that. I did have that previously. I must have had that. How did I have that configured? I had that previously. Hang on. Okay, that's better. I forgot that I added the ePhone for that device for one of the previous nuggets when we were using it to test. Now I like keeping this thing small because it doesn't. I don't like it eating up the whole screen, so I always use the compact mode skin just so I can see it. Now what I did was delete the ePhone and ePhone DN, and so this guy goes, "Oh, I've lost my configuration. I'm gone," and he rebooted himself and went back to this, which is actually this is the auto registered state. By default, the CME device will have auto registration turned on, and that allows all phones to come in and just show themselves. As a matter of fact, I can do a show ePhone, and you can see that I've got two of them right now begging to work with the system. I've got this guy. I can see they're both running Skinny. It has come in here. Here's his MAC address, and he is running CIPC. Cisco IP Communicator. Here's his MAC address, and he is running, well, he is a 7960 IP phone. So I'm able, the beauty of keeping auto registration on is the router does some of the work for you. Now I just have to figure out where those devices are, which if I've done a good job of logging my inventory and said, okay, well, MAC address such and such is over at cubicle 9 and all that, it allows me to do that. So allows me to have it all right there in front of me. So now I'm going to go into global config mode, and you can see my steps behind the scene. I'm going to create the ePhone DN. So let's give these guys some numbers. We've got our FXS ports is 1101 and 2. So let's give him 1110 just to distinguish him, and we'll make the IP communicator 1111. Sure. And why not? Let's give him a secondary line 1112 that he is able to use to dial. Yeah, that should be good start. So I'm going to go back here and do ePhone DN, and I'll hit the question mark. It says, what tag do you want? You know, what identifier? You just need to remember what tag you use here. So I'll say ePhone DN 1, and then hit the question mark. Notice this is where I have that option of enter, which creates the single line, dual line, or octo line. That totally needs to be a superhero at some point. So I'm going to do dual line for this configuration, and I'll probably use that for all of my configurations so I can get 2 lines per button. And notice immediately it provisions on the DSPs inside of this device. It's saying, okay, I've got directory number 1.1 and 1.2, which represents the 2 active calls we can have per line here. And I'm just going to come in here and use one command, number. I'm going to say this ePhone DN gets the number, let's do 1110. Done. Exit back out. ePhone DN2, dual line. Now, let me show you this. One of the things that if you go, oh, and just hit the enter key because you're used to, you've created a single line ePhone DN. You can't. Oh, wait. Never mind. Oh, okay. I was thinking that it would disappear. You can't go and change the mode here. You actually have to delete the whole ePhone DN and recreate it again. I don't know. It was orbiting my mind that it would actually remove those from the context-sensitive help, but it doesn't. It just tells you can't do it. So we'll do ePhone DN2 dual line, and you'll see now it creates the correct provisioning, 2 of them instead of 1 like we had with single line. And then we'll come in here and do number. This guy was 1111. Exit out. ePhone DN3. Number 1112. Hey, I gotta fix this. It's been like 3 nuggets now I've been seeing this line. Console 0, logging synchronous. No exec timeout. No, we don't. And this has already gotten me a couple times. No IP domain lookup. You know, where you mistype and it hangs there for a good 30 seconds. I hate that. So, okay, we've got the ePhone DNs configured. Now it gets much easier as we move into the ePhones. So I'm going to go, first off, doing a do show ePhone. I want that list in front of me because it allows me to just get copy and paste happy. I can come in here and do, let me back up a little bit. I want to make sure that you catch with auto registration what the point of it is. Auto registration allows these phones to come in and the router says, yeah, I will support you. And the phone goes, oh, wonderful, thank you, and then goes shoop like this to where you can now see it says, hey, I'm quote unquote registered with the Cisco Unified CME, life is good. If the router did not have auto registration turned on, what would happen is the phone would boot cycle. It would say, I'm getting my IP, I'm getting the TFTP config, and now when I go to register, bam, it doesn't let me, and it'll reboot and try the whole process again. So this allows the phone to kind of settle in like it's home, but the problem is this configuration is not stored in any permanent config. It's sitting in memory. So if this router rebooted, all those ePhones would go away, and it would likely just randomly assign whoever came in first the next time. So maybe next time this guy would become ePhone 1, and this guy would become ePhone 2, just based on where they were in their boot cycle. Now, what auto registration does, let me make sure I define this. We'll actually talk about this at the very end. It allows you to dish out the ePhone DNs automatically. So I can say I want to assign ePhone DN 1 through 10 to those phones, and it will go ahead and start handing them out as the phones come in. It's kind of neat. Saves you a little work. But right here, I mean, we have to put something in the configuration to keep these. So I'm going to do ePhone. Now just hit the question mark and whatever tag you want. I'm going to use ePhone 1. Now, one thing I want to mention here. Now remember, how did I associate the physical device with this virtual, like the matrix? This is the virtual representation of a physical device. What was the link? The MAC address, right? Now, if I type in MAC address and I say, well, I want to put this guy as ePhone 1. Whoa, I highlighted a little much there. I want to put this guy as ePhone 1. Nope. What did I do? Wow. I just discovered a feature. I didn't know you could do that. That's brilliant. I love when copy and paste goes wrong and yet so right. So what I was going to show you is I was going to copy and paste ePhone DN2 plastered in to where that would become ePhone DN1, and it would give you this error. It would give you this error even if I hadn't previously typed the MAC address command. It's going to say, hey, whoa, this is already assigned here. So ePhone 1, the way these auto-registered, has to be this. If that annoys you, then turn off auto registration. So these phones go away, and they're not allowed to kind of pick their little parking slot there on ePhone 1, ePhone 2, and all that kind of stuff. But look at that. I just discovered a feature that if you type in MAC address and just press enter, it automatically takes whatever MAC address is automatically parked there and makes it now permanent. And what I mean by permanent is it's in the running config. Now, you and I both know the running config is memory resident and isn't really permanent until you save it. But I would say this, when you do a show ePhone and all these phones are showing up, this is an even less than memory resident sort of state because it doesn't have an entry in the running config. At least now I can save it. So great. So I can just type in MAC address. I'm going to use that MAC address and save the auto-registered MAC addresses in as this ePhone. So what have I done? I've gone in. Let me do a show run. I'll just do include. Well, let's do section ePhone. What I've done is I've created 3 lines. You can see the ePhone DN 1, 2, and 3. There they are. And I've got my ePhone 1. Which it automatically typed in device security mode. You can turn on security for these devices, encryption, and all that kind of stuff. But for now, we're keeping it simple. And associated a MAC address. Now, the last piece that we have here is to associate the ePhone and ePhone DNs using the mystical button command. I say it's mystical because it's powerful. There's a lot to it. When I type in button and hit the question mark, it just kind of throws all this context-sensitive health at me, which, if you haven't seen it before, can be really confusing. But I will say, there's times where context-sensitive help is kind of helpful. Well, there's times where it's not helpful at all, where it's like word, and you're like, what does that mean? But there's times where you're like, oh, okay, I kind of see what it is. This one is really helpful. Cisco went all out in creating this little context-sensitive help because they're giving you all the separators for the button command, a brief description, and even, I mean, come on, what more could we ask for? An example. This is almost like a Linux man page, if you will, where it's kind of dumping a lot more than what we're used to in the context-sensitive help. Let me give you the basics. The button command is essentially broken into 2 pieces, line. Then we have our separator, which I'll just represent as a line, and then DN. Here's the basic. Let's say I've got my IP communicator. Over here are the line buttons. You see, as I'm hovering over, it's like line 1, line 2, line 3. So these are the individual line buttons. So if I want to give line 1 the directory number, we'll say 1110, I'm going to put the command 1 colon, this is my separator, followed by the ephone DN number that I don't remember. Ephone DN, hang on, let me shoot back right here. Ephone DN 1. Now, keep in mind, I'm typing in the ephone DN number, not the actual number here. So I'm typing ephone DN 1. So if I were going to do this, I would say 1 colon 1, which now will assign button 1110 to line 1 of that phone or whatever phone I'm configuring. Now, what if I want? Hey, let's do this. Let's go back here. What if I wanted to assign 1112 to button 2? That's where I would do 2 colon 3. See, it kind of bends your mind a little bit, right? Because I'm saying, okay, line number 2 is actually going to have ephone DN 3. Is that making sense a little bit there? To where now, when I'm looking at the phone, this button will show up with the right number. So let's make it a little more real to us here. I've got, let's see, ephone DN, or sorry, ephone 1 was what? Which phone was that? Ephone 1 was the IP communicator. Okay, so we are under ephone 1 right now. So I'm going to do button 1 colon, and let's do button 1 colon 2, because I wanted this guy to have 1111 and 1112. And if you remember from our show run, here, let me do a show run section ephone. If you remember from our running config, ephone DN2 is actually 1111. Okay, so I've assigned that button. Now I can come over here and look, and not much is happening. Well, why not? Well, because anytime you apply one of these changes, the phone has to be restarted or reset. Matter of fact, when I go under the phone itself, I can type in, let's do question mark. You can see reset or restart. Difference, restart is a warm boot, meaning, hey, phone, don't go get a new IP address. Don't get your firmware. Don't go download the TFTP config. Just come and re-register with me. You know, come and re-download your configuration from the Call Manager Express router. Reset is all the way. That's what you want if you've got one of those core changes, like you're upgrading the firmware of the phone, or you've changed the subnet, the VLAN, the whatever of the phone, and you want to get it back down to ground level. So I'm just going to do a restart of this phone. Oh, did you see it? Right up there, and we now have 1111 as our first glorious line, and in my ears right now I hear it going, matter of fact, I mean, it's a living active phone. I can pick up one of these FXS ports on here. This is my little analog phone, and I can dial 1111, and you can see that the call is already going through. I can come from here, hit this, and dial, what was it, 1102? Yep, there we go. And we've got the phone connected, where we can have a nice little conversation. I can hear myself talking and echoing and all that kind of stuff right now. So it is a living active phone now. So I could come in here if I wanted to and say, well, I also want to do button 2 colon 3, which adds that. Do a nice little restart. And poof, now we've got 2 lines. You see how easy that is? You can even do, with this button command, you can do multiples on one. I can do button 1 colon 2 and 2 colon 3, both on one line. I mean, you can see as you start going faster with this, you get used to how this works. So it's always going to be this button, and fill it in. We've got line number, colon, and then ephone DN. Now, you notice that I've been using the colon separator. The reason the button command gets mystical is there's all kinds of other separators that I'm able to use. So for example, maybe I wanted button 2 to be a silent ring. And what does that mean? Well, the ringer will be muted. Call waiting beep will also be muted. So the only thing that I'll see if I assign it that way is this little on-screen phone will go wiggle, 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 wiggle when a call is coming in. Wiggle, 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 wiggle. So we've got 1 colon 2, and we could do 2S3, which says now configure that as a silent ring. Again, restart. Then we're not going to really see anything, but Same kind of thing. We now have a silent ring second button on that phone. All right, well, the last thing I want to do here is get our other 7960, my physical phone that I'm staring at right now with the blank screen configured as well. So let's give us more devices to play with. So I'll have Ephone 2 at this point. MAC address, and here's our new shortcut. Yay, it automatically fills it in there. So we've got the MAC address assigned. It's a 7960 IP phone, and then I can go in and type in button. We'll do button 1 colon, and this guy is 1, I believe. So I'm going to restart that phone. I'm just watching it. Whoa. That guy decided to just go all the way. It restarted. It blinked. I'm watching it, and then it just decided, okay, I'm going to reset myself. So it actually went back to the ground level. Probably had just been sitting there so long. It was. I don't know why it reset itself all the way back to the. Because I assigned a new firmware for it. What the restart actually does. Oh, great. Now it's remember in the last nugget when I went through and shows you how to set the firmware for the phone, where I said make this the TFTP server and all that kind of stuff, and I demonstrated that. Well, that's what it's doing. It's saying, oh, wait a sec. When you use a restart command, what happens is it triggers a push of the configuration file to the phone. So it's at the CME device. Well, actually, it's coming this way. Pushes a new CNF file, configuration file, to the phone, and if any firmware changes are seen in there, which is exactly what happened right now. The phone itself will say, oh, I need to go all the way down. I need to reboot myself and download the new firmware, which is, I'm watching, it says, right now it says upgrading application. So I'll pause. I'll sit and stare at it and wait. Okay, I didn't have to wait that long, maybe another 10 seconds or so. So our phone is now back up and it's alive and well. So I can dial from here 1110. Man, that's loud. And, answer that and feedback loop and whatnot. So okay, so now we've got 3 devices with us. We can go back and do a show run. I mean, whoa, not there. Go back and do a show run. Let's do section ePhone and see that we now have 3 lines configured and 2 individual ePhones configured with the specific button configurations that we want. Okay, well, there's much more to say about this, but I'm going to draw the line in the sand there simply because I want to keep it palatable. We've seen a huge step forward in this nugget by looking at the ePhone and ePhone DN concept, which allows you to get the IP phones up and running in your environment. And the neat thing is the CME now makes everything available to those phones. The features are working in their base configuration. They've got access to the dial plan. For instance, when I come in here and do a show dial peer voice summary, I'm able to, from these IP phones, I can dial 9, get an outside line, call long distance, call local, all of this entire dial peer schematic is now available to the IP phones. And you can see the router creates these dynamic dial peers to represent each one of those phones. Now those don't exist in the configuration. I can't do a show run section dial peer and see those guys 2,000 or 20,002. They don't really exist. They're virtual, but they're there so that the router has a match when somebody calls those. So these phones now have local calling. They can call within the environment. They can call anything that you have a dial peer and are able to match on there. And we even start getting into some of the auto registration features. In the next nugget, we're going to explore more of that button command and see all the features of that, as well as getting into this mystical land of shared lines and button overlay. But for now, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.